today as we confer the inaugural Richard M. Webster Medallion, which will be awarded each year to an elected official who has made a significant contribution to the public good and demonstrated political leadership at local, state, or national levels. We're honored to have Senator Ron Richard as our first recipient. So let's hear it for Senator Richard.
Thank you very much. It's quite an honor. I wasn't expecting this. I want to thank Missouri Southern, Dr. Marble, Board of Governors, staff of Missouri Southern, my staff. Some of them are here today, Patty Paris, Gwen Delano, who I couldn't do a lot of the outreach to you all that without those two. And of course, Patty, my family, who have helped me during tough and sometimes long campaigns, and it's, I appreciate them. It's been a long time since I've been here speaking Missouri Southern, graduating here some years ago. I think Paul probably has the picture of when I was elected junior class president. I think the same picture when I was in the Young Democrats. That has changed over the years, but I will tell you that the reason I was in the Young Democrats because my buddies said that's the best place to get women and drink beer. And I said, okay, all right. And the Republicans were horn-rimmed glasses and pencil protectors. Well, so I thought, I don't want to be one of them. So the Webster family has been something that I've idolized for years. Richard Webster, who I visit with often at the courthouse, talking about finances, talking about what's important in the counties. And then, of course, Bill. He and I have been friends. The very first, I was telling Lance Beshore, when Harry Mack called, he did this large fundraiser for Bill as governor out at Liggett and Platt, and they called and wanted to know if I'd write a check for $1,000. And first I had to see if I had $1,000, and I thought I did. And I've never written a check before to anybody in a campaign. My first and my proudest was Bill Webster. I still think he'd have been probably the finest governor and U.S. Senator we've ever had. However,
and joining me today, I'd like to welcome Senator Richard. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Judy. Nice to see you again.
And you've had a couple special weeks here at Missouri Southern. We saw a little bit of the medallion ceremony and the sharing of the occasion with the public as we've had. And you mentioned the importance of the Webster family and what that meant for you. Of course, Missouri Southern, a lot of meaning as well, being here, being recognized.
Well, always being honored by the institution you graduated from has a lot of meaning for me and has some moments of soft spots in your heart. So it was nice, that Webster medallion. I didn't even know they had such a thing. Well, I was happy to be the first one, and I hope there's many more for other people that do a great job. So it was quite a week with that, and with the building that Governor Nixon was here too. So it's been a long time since I've been here. I graduated here in 1969, so we hope that we're able to help Southern make it better out here for younger kids.
And you've always been a strong supporter of Missouri Southern and higher education, knowing the value that means in people's lives.
Well, you got it right. Missouri Southern higher education, we have our priorities. Missouri Southern first, everybody else second. Even though I did my graduate work at Missouri State, I guess Missouri Southern, Missouri State, and everybody else third.
And of course, we didn't catch it on the ceremony, but they mentioned that you were not only Speaker of the House, but now President Pro Tem of the Senate, holding those positions, not only representing the district or the area, but in leadership positions in Jefferson City.
Yes, the Speaker Pro Tem, as well as Speaker of the House, President Pro Tem, I mean, is more or less a statewide office, and you represent not only your local district, but members throughout the state. So it's quite an honor being one of the first ones ever done that. So lucky I have good staff that make me look good, but we work pretty hard to of the number of calls, and we have several hundred people that work for us in the Senate, just like when I was Speaker. So it's a management opportunity too. But we got great people at the Capitol and great people that work for me too. Gwen Delano here in town, Patty Paris, as we talked about on that clip, plus many others that help me every day.
So you're successful thanks to the successful, supportive people behind
Well,
you.
they do a great job. That's right. Make me look good.
Well, you mentioned the groundbreaking, and of course, the governor came to town, and we have a building being named in his honor here at Missouri Southern as well. You were instrumental in helping getting the funding to help, working with the governor for this project as well.
Well, over time, the governor and I had spoke about the needs based on the medical school and the students, the massive amount of students going to be enrolling in chemistry and math and science and STEM initiative, and the fact that your lab space was archaic and you needed some more rooms for sciences. So we managed to find some money that no one else knew was there, and the governor, because he's been down here a lot over the last several years because of our disaster. So after some talk, he was amenable to us getting some extra money to get that started. And it's interesting that you have 3 facilities. You have the Hearns, which was a Democrat,
Right.
named after a governor that helped us start the institution, and then of course Dick Webster that helped push along and make this 4-year institution even happen from a 2-year. And then Governor Nixon, who helps us, who's a Democrat, have us have an expansion, so we're able to make that new medical school help fit and get some more kids involved in here. With this massive amount of enrollment, we need those classrooms and class space.
Really planning for the future. Well, we also had someone there that day. We have a brief excerpt from that ceremony. So let's let the audience take a look at the groundbreaking ceremony we had at
Okay.
Missouri Southern.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the official groundbreaking for the Jeremiah W. J. Nixon Hall, a building that's destined to become one of the premier science facilities on Missouri Southern State University campus, or anywhere in Missouri for that matter. We feel special excitement on a day when ground is broken for a new building because it marks a time when the thinking about it stage stops and the real work starts.
Sometimes people ask me why and how it is I get along so well with Ron Richard. And I said the rules are relatively simple. He's very clear on what he wants, and you better not kind of agree to it, because that's an agreement. You better have a handshake so that both of you know that magic moment when you actually do agree. Because we negotiate a lot before we shake hands, okay? That's not, the first meeting is not shaking hands. I just want to say, Ron, the compliment that you gave me, the high compliment you just gave to me, is also shared not only by me for you, but also to all these members and everyone that has interacted with you in your years of public service. You're a person whose integrity matters, your word matters, and that's why you get things done. And it's been an honor to serve with you, and I appreciate the many stories that I will have that in 42 days I'll be able to begin telling in a positive way. I want to thank Representative Flanagan, Davis, Kelly, White, Representative Lex Smith with us, Mayor Seibert, President Marble, everybody here today. This university is a strong anchor of academic excellence for this region and a source of strength for a community that has inspired me, quite frankly, has inspired the world. I told some folks up here a minute ago, I just came back, we were in Dubai, and one of the reasons I was there is not only are we selling F-150s, which they just went over 5,000 made in Kansas City on the deal that Ron Richard and I and a number of folks here did. But I was to thank personally Sheik that gave the dollars for the computers for the kids in school, as well as the dollars to help with St. Mary's. And he wanted me to send my best to y'all. And so I gave him Dr. Marble's phone number in case there's anything else that needs to get handled. But that was halfway across the world, this community inspired folks.
So we can see a part of the groundbreaking ceremony, but the governor mentions working together. You've been in Jefferson City, and I guess that teamwork, no matter which party you're representing, you've been receptive to, let's talk to the other people, work together.
Well, like I've always said, I get along with every governor about 50% of the time. Now, that 50% moves, of which I agree with them. But I've always worked with all governors ever since I was elected. I started with Governor Holden. I traveled him doing economic development. Governor Blunt, I traveled him doing job creation, economic development, and some other things that he needed some help on. And of course, Governor Nixon. I mean, Governor Nixon's been very kind. But job creation, economic development, putting people to work, letting people stay here and move here, it's always been top of my list. I mean, higher education is part of that. Good training that creates people go to work, get good jobs, and helps us have a trained workforce. So Governor Nixon's very kind. I will say that on this project, Missouri Southern, on many others, whether we were building trucks in Kansas City or building jets in St. Louis at Boeing, it always had a teardrop effect with some of our vendors. I mean, even Ligon Platt and Carthage does some work for the automotive industry, the aircraft industry, as well as others in this Southwest Missouri. So it's not just helping a St. Louis community. I mean, all roads work together, and it's you know, if you're smart and you're an elected official and you figure out where the power is in the governor's office, you figure out a way those times you can work together. And if you can work through the noise, you can get a lot of things accomplished, and I've managed to work through the noise.
Right. Of course, now coming toward the end of 2016 is the time of transition. Governor Nixon kind of commented there, I only have so many days left, because we have a new governor coming in, new people coming into statewide offices.
Yeah. The new governor, Governor Greitens, doesn't really know that much about how the system works. And he's going to need someone to help him work through some of the personalities, some of the people you can trust, you can't trust, and how legislation works and how it gets across the finish line. Now, he's going to have people from time to time that's going to help him, but we don't know who they are yet. I mean, this early in your program, they haven't been appointed yet. So I'm meeting with him weekly, trying to help him through the fences and show him and explain to him how we can get things finished. But he seems to be a really smart fella, understands what he wants to do. I've been reluctant to talk to the press on some of my priorities because I've been waiting on the governor to express his, and I think that's only courteous. So when he gives his priorities, I mean, I know what I want to do, and we'll get some of them things done, but I want to give him the opportunity to talk about his priorities. He is the governor, and so I'm going to default to him.
So there's a lot of work going on with we hear about transitions at the national level as well as the statewide level, transition teams working things out. And that's what you've been doing a lot of time now in Jefferson City since the election.
Well, I'm not on the transition team, but there's a group of people to help him figuring out what departments do, what the department heads he wants to choose, some of the policies to change or implement, and just to understand what he's inheriting. And he has some people involved that knows a little bit about Missouri politics. So I don't know, there's probably a team, I don't know, a dozen or two, and trying to get the guy off the right track, and that's okay. But I'm not involved in that. I'll help with the inauguration a little bit in a couple of weeks, but other than that, I'm focused on my 34 senators and their priorities and what my priorities are.
Now, you're going to have a different situation starting in January with Republican control of the House, the Senate, and the governorship.
Right.
You haven't had that for a few years.
Am I smiling about that? We've had that when I was Speaker of the House with Matt Blunt. But it hadn't been that often. It's going to, and with the presidencies, it's even going to be a more dynamic change because we're going to probably have some changes in education funding, social service funding, and how it bears on what we're able to do, and hopefully we can get dollars that comes in a block grant. I mean a total number of dollars that we can spend on Medicaid, spend on prisons or some social services, or we can do education. I mean, we need to rethink our education system too. So that's our hope, but again, we just got to wait and let the president get sworn into office on the 20th of January. So again, I'm pretty careful about what I say and what I promise. I will give you 3 buckets that we are going to do. Now, in between those, what's in those buckets is remain. I'll let the governor talk about. We're going to do some legal reform. A significant try to get rid of some frivolous lawsuits in the state of Missouri. Missouri has been known in this country as a judicial hellhole, which it's a good place to file suit and to sue people and businesses over nonsense most of the time.
So tightening up those laws.
We are going to change them and make it a little less, let businesses have a chance to have an equal playing field in court.
So this ties into business and business development as well.
Well, and yes. And then we're going to do some labor reform, and we'll let the governor decide what he decides to do on that. And then some regulatory reform. He can do some of that by his order and sign off some things, but And then he's got some education reform. So those buckets, I'm not sure what we're going to do. We'll let him put his toe in the water first.
So he will come to the legislature. Obviously, he's going to have an opening speech to everybody and saying, these are my key points. And the
Well, he's
formal
already
presentations.
talking about what he wants to do, and most of it aligns with me. But I'm gonna, before we get out on the press, and I'm going to let him get in front of the public and explain exactly what he wants to do. He's made campaign promises, and now let's see what he wants to do in particular. And of course, I'll be there to help.
Now, you mentioned Washington, and a lot of our viewers may not realize that, obviously we have the state of Missouri, but what happens in Washington with a new president and new administration will indeed affect what's happening in Missouri.
Well, yeah, I mean, $28 billion budget. I mean, everything, all the money comes from the Fed except for about $8 billion of it. And then it comes with the strings that say you can only spend it doing this, and you can't do that. So, if it loosens up our ability to spend dollars that we think is the best for Missouri, we'll be watching for that. So, yes, a lot of it is a lot of things are waiting on. You say, well, we need to kind of get in gear and get things formulated. Well, I have my staff working on a plan already on those buckets. We're going to start with labor reform, right to work. We're going to tweak prevailing wage. We're going to do some. Other reforms, legal reform, expert witness, and some things we didn't get passed last year. I'm working with some chairmen now to decide if they want to carry some legislation. If not, we'll assign somebody to do it. So my goal right now is to get new committees appointed with new chairmen, and I'll be doing that and announce them right after January. Okay. And the reason I've announced them so far, this being December, is that the governor is looking at some of the senators to maybe go to work for the administration.
Okay, so there might be some changes.
So I am, until he decides if he wants some of those senators to go to work for him, I'm not going to release who the chairman and members are, because I'd have to just redo it again, and I'd rather just do it one time. Right. So that's kind of what I'm waiting on. I'm talking to him about, we've talked the other day, and if he plans on enlisting one of them, then or two of them.
So that'll change some of your decisions on what you can do for positions.
So that's what I'm waiting on now.
Right. So do you feel that some of the issues or topics that you've had in the past that they've made it through the legislature but not past the governor, this is a opportunity for some of those issues to go on through for completion? No vetoes sitting there.
Some of the priorities they weren't able to finish with Matt Blunt are going to be finished in the next several years with Governor Greitens. And that we don't need a veto-proof majority to do this. Before, it took us 24, now it just needs 18, which is a significant change. Right. When I was Speaker of the House, it took 109 to override the governor, and now simple majority is 82. Big difference, a lot easier, and especially when you're on a fast track, to get some significant amount of things done. Everyone talks about the first 100 days. Well, that's the same for the governor. I mean, they usually have a Cinderella period of 2 or 3 months, and we're going to try to get some things finished quickly, and so we can go out. Because, you see, we got another election coming in 2 years. We got a number of senators, including myself, that's going to be term limited, that we got to recruit and help fund. And, of course, the House goes up for election every 2 years, too. So I got to be thinking about that and get ready for the Senate for that before I leave. And also, we've got redistricting coming up in 2020, and I've got to get ready for that. Even though I won't be there, I'll finish in 18. I got to put the mechanism in place for, that just doesn't happen overnight.
So looking at challenges facing the state, we have a lot of opportunities, and then of course challenges carry over no matter who's in charge in Jefferson City, governor or legislature. We still have to look at, as you said, business, the state economy, the budget, those types of things are still there no matter what you're feeling.
Yes, some things that we need to think through. Public safety, the fact that police officers being targeted is just unbelievable to me. We're going to have a public safety legislation, then we're going to go after those people that want to target our first responders. And the governor and I talked about that. His wife got robbed at gunpoint when she's out the other day. You saw that. So we're going to and we're going to support our first responders, and we're going to do some things that the criminals aren't going to like, which is okay with me. And we've got some transportation funding we got to resolve for highways, airports. And again, the president has talked about a massive infrastructure program, hopefully funded by the offshore money coming in. We'll reduce the taxes on business to bring in some of their offshore money, and bring some of that. And if that's going to be a massive spending, we've got to figure out, or whatever our number is that's allocated to Missouri, that our share is about 20%. How we can fund that 20%. If it talks about, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars come Missouri, we got to be able to have our 20%.
Right.
And then on the social service side, I mean, our Medicaid population is rising a little bit, but also our services, particularly the pharmacy side, is really, it's gone up 1,000% over time. So we're going to have to figure out how to control our pharmacy costs. Last year we had a $300 million surplus in the budget that we couldn't give dollars to a number of things, transportation, higher education, because it all went to social services to pay extra Medicaid charges. So we're going to have to work through that. That growth is unacceptable. We're going to have to discuss how we're going to curtail some of those expenses.
So when you get back to Jefferson City and the gavel starts the session, it's going to be people getting really down to business as far as discussions, and we're not.
Well, it's already started. Patty and I, she wanted to take a couple of days and went to Colorado and drove around and did some things she wanted to do. And she even cut the trip short because I was on the phone all the time. I mean, after the election, any election just gets to a point that I'm in the middle of a lot of decisions. So, no, all those things have been going on for some time of what we want to do, how we want to do it, and the process, getting the structure, getting language ready to go, make sure it's correct, make sure it's constitutional. And now we got a judge on the Supreme Court that passed away the other day, and the governor's going to have to decide on who that person is. We've been talking about that too.
So a lot of people, maybe the public doesn't really understand the process it takes that you have to go through to get everything you say in order, legally correct, before you come up with an idea and make it a bill that's passed and signed later in the session.
Yeah, if it's, it may be a great idea, but in order to make a great idea a great legislation, I mean, sometimes great ideas are not necessarily need to be law. I mean, we'll pass, including the budget, 175 pieces of legislation a year, and as far as I'm concerned, that's a lot. It used to be more than that. But there's in the Senate, 500 or 600 pieces of legislation, 1,000, 1,200 in the House, and most of them are just window dressing.
And this is the time of year we see those. So and so's pre-filed a bill. We're starting to see.
Oh
ideas
yeah,
that
and see, my job is not only to appoint chairmen and to appoint committees, but to take the legislation and send it to which committee you want to send it to, and then at the proper time take it out of committee. And I can take it out whenever I want and put it on the calendar. And the calendar is a list of when the majority leader can take it up for debate. Some of the legislation is never going to see the light of day.
they'll file it, but it's never going to go anywhere from there.
Some of it is not going to see the light of day.
Now for you, I know you mentioned your office locally and your staff. People want to get in touch with your office. You have a local office in Joplin.
On 32nd Street, right next to Sonic. Gwen Delano, who's been in government longer than I have, runs that. Then Patty Paris runs my legislative office in Jeff City.
Okay. So you invite comments, feedback from the citizens, the people in the community?
All the time. Yeah, I mean, people usually, and I'm around in town, so all the time. We are a phone book, we're pretty handy, and people know me. I've been around a long time, so yeah.
So if
Anytime.
people have challenges with something regarding state services, they can start off by contacting you.
They've been doing that for years, yeah.
So continuing to do that. Well, you mentioned, 4 years working in the Jefferson City, going back to your days in Joplin. People who watched before know we've talked a little bit about your background, but someone might be wondering, well, what sparked your initial interest years ago in running for public office at the beginning?
It started in high school when I went to Macaulay, and I was a class president of one of the classes. And then I went to Missouri Southern. When Missouri Southern came out here to this campus, and it came as a 3-year college, and I was the first president of the junior class. When we didn't have a 4-year school, it was a 3-year school. And then after that, I always helped political candidates and walk neighborhoods and give out leaflets and travel around working through the college kids. And after that, of course, I raised a family and I always had an interest. And I went to City Hall. I think the first interview you and I did back in the 80s was I was on the zoning board. I mean, I was on the zoning board, and I went to chairman of the zoning commission. Then I went to City Hall as a city councilman. Right. Then I went to mayor. And then term limits kicked in. I went to the state legislature. And 2 years after that, I was chairman of economic development, which I'd have been happy if I'd have stopped there. Then 2 years after that, I was Speaker of the House. Then I went to the Senate, and I was on economic development again. And then the members came to me as majority leader and then president of the Senate. So I've made kind of a slow progression of moving way up. Some of it I really didn't think I wanted to do, and some of it I didn't plan on. I just been lucky on some doors open up. But always had an interest in it, and it continues. But term limits kick in, so I'll be finished in 2 years. So maybe in 2 years we'll come by and say goodbye the same way we said hello when I go in.
Way back in the 80s when we started.
Yeah.
What would you say is a key to success for public servants like you, people who are representing a key to success, someone who's watching and say, well, what
I
does it
would
take?
say your word's your bond. Keep your word. Everything radiates from that. People in Jeff City anymore don't do that. Your handshake's not your word. You say you're going to do something in Jeff City, whether it's going to vote for something or not vote for something, you change your mind without giving any indication, or you say you're going to support somebody or something and you change your mind or go to the highest bidder at the end of the day. If you're going to have some credibility, keep your word and your handshake's your bond.
So are those words of advice you would give to incoming legislators as well?
Every time I visit them, I just invited the new senators to come to office a couple of days ago, and that's one of the things I told them. We'll see if they do, but I'll be watching. Everyone advised you to read Lyndon Johnson's book, Master of the Senate. And I said, you need to read that, how Lyndon Johnson ran the Senate when he was majority leader. But keep in mind, I've read it too. So I know the tricks that you're going to think you can do. Well, we'll see, but keep your word is one of them.
So keeping your word and then representing, like you say, the people that you're representing throughout the state, remembering your
yeah, that's
core of
right.
what you're trying to do. So as you look forward to next year, any specific goal that you would like to have, accomplish the most, or what you would like to reach?
My goal in the Senate, my final 2 years, is just like the first day I went to City Hall, is to create some jobs and let people go to work and have that sense of ownership in the community when they have a good quality job and can go home and say, honey, I got a raise or I got a promotion. That's what makes it all worth it. So everything else is sidebar. My job, it's going to be job creation.
Right. So making a difference in people's lives because they're employed and working
Well,
together.
give them a chance to make a difference. Yeah.
Great. Well, Senator Richard, I'd like to thank you very much for being
Yeah,
here
I'm
today.
glad to come back. Maybe in 2 years we'll say goodbye.
Well, hopefully we can talk before then,
Okay.
but follow up
Okay.
on what's happening in Jefferson
Sure.
City.
All right, we can do that. Or you're always welcome to come to Jeff City and do something live up there.
Yeah, follow up on what's happening there. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I'd like to thank you, the viewers, for joining us this week on Newsmakers. I'm Judy Stiles. Hope you can join me again next week at the same time on the station. We'll see you then.